Welcome in, everybody, on the road in San Francisco. It is Saturday night after the Nuggets eliminated the Clippers in Game 7, and the Avs blew a 2-0 lead in their Game 7 down in Dallas and bowed out to the Stars. A lot to say about both of those games, especially the Avs defeat in 7 games to the Stars. And a little bit later on, Chase Dollander will join us. Not right now. It was taped. It's kind of late, as I said. Want to make mention, as always, to our great sponsors, Huntington Bank. They're terrific, and they're popping up now on every corner. They make things feel local because they are local. Huntington Bank does some marvelous things. So if you're in line for a new place to do your banking, I strongly suggest you go in and see the good folks at Huntington Bank. And as I said, you'll be able to find one very near wherever you are situated. Also, steel, talk about steel and have for a number of years. STIHL, steeldealers.com. You'll find a location near you. And Steel USA is where you go shopping, steelusa.com, because you're going to find every gadget imaginable, big and small. Battery operated is my preference, but they're going to help make your yard, make your property look pristine. So make sure you go check them out. That's STIHL, steelusa.com. All right, I was fired up to watch these 2 Game 7s. I'll be honest, I was nervous, less so, for the Nuggets, because I think the Nuggets, and I'll begin with them, are playing with bank. They're playing with house money, because I don't think anybody, with how short their bench is, really expects the Nuggets to contend for a championship, even though they have won just a couple of years ago, and they have the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic. I will say this, based on what we witnessed today, the move to remove Mike Malone and hand the job to David Adelman looks like a solid one right now. It looks like they knew what they were doing, because the team was not playing well, as everybody knows, throughout the second half. I talked about this a few weeks ago. When Mike Malone, who's been a terrific coach, and he's a great, great competitor, and he's going to coach again probably next year, says that he feels like the room's not listening to him. Sometimes you need a new voice. Doesn't mean he's a bad coach. He's certainly not that. He's a championship coach, the all-time winningest Nugget coach. But the move with 3 games left, at least right now, looks like it's paid off, because not only did they finish strong, won those last 3 games, but then they win a 7-game series. And in Game 7, yeah, I know they fell behind early, and at the end of the first quarter, I think they were down 5. But those middle 2 quarters and into the early part of the third or fourth quarter, they blew out the Clippers. It was not a game. There were 35 points in a Game 7, for God's sakes. Steve Ballmer flew in half of the Clipper fans and put them, in the end zone, bought up all those tickets, and still it was a Nugget blowout in Game 7. So the tip of the cap to David Adelman, tip of the cap to the Nuggets, who remain really thin. I mean, they played 7 guys for a good portion of that game, entire first half. But it wasn't just Jokic. They had contributions up and down that lineup of the guys that played big minutes, and they needed to. Aaron Gordon was sensational again. Christian Braun is becoming a top-tier two-way player. We've seen the great improvement in his three-point shot, which needed to happen with some of the departures, a guy that was reluctant in the past, and he was a kid. He was a young player to shoot that 3. Now he shoots it with confidence, and he absolutely locked down James Harden 2 of 8 for a few points. You kidding me? So, again, hats off to the Nuggets. They had good balance tonight, and now they'll get ready for Oklahoma City. I know on paper no one's going to give the Nuggets a chance, and I know the regular season is the regular season, but the Nuggets were really competitive with the Thunder. They went 2-2 during the regular season, and I think it'll be interesting to see how this series unfolds. We always spend time talking about, well, one team's really well rested because they had a sweep, and the other team is going to play another game within 48 hours. I go back to something I said initially. The Nuggets are playing with house money. They can be loose because no one expects them to move past the Thunder. So, again, good for the Nuggets in winning tonight. It was fun to watch. It was easy to watch for those that were worried about chewing fingernails. The Avalanche, on the other end, not so much. My family big Avalanche fans. My boys, huge Avalanche fans. They're Nugget fans as well. But they had a lot invested in terms of angst in watching really this entire series. And at the end, when the Avalanche blew a two-goal third-period lead, when they blew that, as angry as I was, because I mean, it's one of the rare opportunities in doing what I do for a living and what I've done for so long. It just allows me to be a fan. And so I feel the same pain of all those other Avalanche fans out there. But what I came to was this: they didn't deserve it. At the end, if you break it down, you can point to, you know, a penalty being called late in a game that's you figures not ordinarily called in a game 7 or even in a playoff game early in a series, but it doesn't matter. It wasn't just one game. Look at the overtime games. The Avalanche had a 4-minute penalty in one game that went to overtime. They still had 3 minutes in the overtime to bury the puck, and they couldn't. One of the biggest stories of that series was how aggressive on the PK Dallas was. And the Avalanche possessed one of the great power plays in hockey during the regular season, and all of that talent. And then you add Gabriel Landeskog to stand in front of the net, and their power play was basically completely negated by the aggressiveness of Dallas on the PK. You lose 2 overtime games. You lose 3 games in which you had a lead in the third period. Unacceptable. So you can't just point to game 7 and how that damn thing unfolded late. They didn't deserve to win. And then you throw on top of it the fact that Robertson was out, a 35-goal scorer for Dallas. Their top defenseman was out, and it went 7, and Dallas won. And it makes me sick to say that. And what makes it all the more difficult, and why when I juxtapose where the Avalanche are and where the Nuggets are, I know both squads recently won championships, and you can't take that away. There were parades, man. Great, great moments. They were the last ones standing in their respective league. But the Nuggets are thinner now than they were when they were a championship team. The Avalanche reconfigured, and to people inside the NHL, people that I really respect, that team was as gifted as any team in the NHL. And in fact, I think the odds were the Avalanche were the favorite going into the Stanley Cup playoffs, the betting favorite for whatever that's worth, but it is worth something. And I know it's a bad draw when 2 great teams have to play each other in the first round, the Avs and the Stars. But at the end of the day, they didn't get it done. And that's so disappointing, given the fact that you have 2 Hall of Fame players on your roster. And it's not just that. They're going to go down. I'm talking obviously about McKinnon and Makar as 2 of the greatest players in the history of the sport when it's all said and done. Makar was disappointing in this series. I mean, he had some good games, but there were moments where you're saying, where is he and where's the magic? And it's hard to be critical of Cale Makar. He's otherworldly. But as a group, even with the big boost emotionally and in play that they got with Gabriel Landeskog, they came up short. And I just keep coming back to not being able to win either overtime game, blowing 2 leads in the third period, and then in game 7, having a 2-0 lead in the third period and not getting it done. And don't give me pointing to the refs. Yeah, you can always point to penalties that were called or penalties that were not called. You're always going to look at it singularly from the perspective of the team that you root for. And I think back to the cross-check to the head of McKinnon that wasn't called, but I'm sure there's some plays that Dallas could be upset about. At the end of the day, I keep saying this, they didn't get it done. They did not get it done, and they were the healthier team, and they were in position to win 3 games that they ended up losing, including that heartbreaker in game 7. Dallas had 9 shots. Do you realize this? They had 9 shots through 2 periods. That's how smothering the Avalanche were. And then they had the dreaded 2-goal lead. Worst lead in hockey, right? As the cliche goes. The dreaded 2-goal lead. Oh, man. And then the other part of it, and this doesn't gut me like it's going to gut some. Mikko Rantanen, we were not in the room. The Avalanche determined that he was not going to sign for whatever they felt they could offer. And so they do the trade with Carolina. Carolina can't sign him, so they trade him to Dallas. And who has the last laugh? Well, I won't say it's a laugh because Mikko Rantanen, who seems like a wonderful guy, truly, he was thrilled out that he scored a hat trick and his team won. But he felt the pain of guys he is exceptionally close with as he went through that handshake line. But that helps or makes it sting. Not helps, it makes it sting that much more. Right after it's over, your natural reaction as a fan is you want somebody's ass, right? Bednar should be fired. McFarland should be fired. I think McFarland did a hell of a job in reconfiguring a roster that was woefully short all of a sudden. From goaltending to depth, he did that. Now, they didn't get it done against Dallas. That's on them. That's on the players. The Avalanche are the first team, by the way, in the history of 7-game series to lose 7 consecutive 7-game series. Last time they won a Game 7 was in 2002. I'll do the math. It was 23 years ago. That's crazy. And the other thing that sucks, you keep coming back to McKinnon and Makar, not to mention, a great talent like Nichushkin, a great talent now like Landeskog is back. I know he wasn't here the last 3 years, but since winning the Cup, they've won one series. That's it. And now Father Time ticks along, and who knows what next year will look like. I'm not reactionary. I don't believe that you need to get rid of McFarland. I'm not in that room every day. I have great respect from afar for Jared Bednar. It seems like they play hard for Jared Bednar. It's just amazing, though, that they lost that hockey game. They were in a great position. They were the better team, for 2+ periods, and you felt that in several other games, and they still didn't win, and that's on them. That's on them. Got me thinking about, great players in other sports that didn't win a championship. The Avalanche do have a championship. I think some of the narrative now will be, well, you have McKinnon and Carr, you got to win multiple championships. Just like we hear on the Nuggets side, you have the best player in the world in Jokic, who has won 3 MVPs, should win this year, but he won't, it looks like. And you have one championship. It's hard to win titles. It's hard to win titles, especially in hockey, where there's so many fluky things that happen. There was a fluky goal tonight against the Avs. Rantanen's wraparound hits Sammy Girard's skate and goes in. But some names, we'll start in the NHL. Guy who finished his career with the Avalanche, Jarome Iginla, 500+ goals in his NHL career, right? Never won a championship. Joe Thornton, Marcel Dion, Peter Stastny, another guy with ties here, right? Henrik Lundqvist, the great goalie for the Rangers. Pavel Bure, the Russian Rocket, never won a Stanley Cup. NBA, Charles Barkley. Those Utah teams, they were clearly the second best team in the NBA and good enough to win titles at other times with Stockton and Malone. Neither one of those guys ever won a title. Patrick Ewing with the Knicks, oh so close, never won a title. Reggie Miller, one of the great shooters ever, right? One of the great clutch shooters ever. Never be it past Michael. Michael took down a lot of people. How about in the NFL? Dan Marino gets to a Super Bowl real early in his career, probably assumes he's going to get back there multiple times. Never did, never won. Jim Kelly, 0 for 4 with the Buffalo Bills. Barry Sanders in Detroit finally hung up his spikes or cleats. Randy Moss, one of the greatest wideouts ever, never won one. Junior Seau, the late Junior Seau, one of the great linebackers ever, never won a world championship. In baseball, Ted Williams, arguably the greatest hitter of all time, never won one. Barry Bonds, for me, the greatest hitter in my lifetime, never won one. Ernie Banks, of course, famous for never winning one. Tony Gwynn, Ken Griffey Jr., never won one. So there's a lot of players and a lot of sports that haven't won one. McCarr and McKinnon have. You hope that there's more, but right now, I feel your pain because I'm pained by what transpired tonight. So we'll see what comes as the Avalanche have to take inventory of where they are. Nuggets get ready to take on Oklahoma City, as I said earlier, with house money, and hopefully they play that way. Hopefully they play loose, and we'll see how that one shakes out. Baseball-wise, the Rockies are in the midst of playing 29 in a row against teams above 500. And it's not just teams that have snuck above 500. Some of the best teams in baseball, the Yankees, the Mets, the Cubs, who've been terrific offensively so far this year. And we'll see if they can hang in there. They need to hit. It's tough to watch at times. You're waiting for these young guys to come together, and there have been some bright spots. I think Jordan Beck clearly has taken a stride. Significant one in the right direction this year. Hunter Goodman's been really steady. As we chat tonight, I think he's got a hit in 16 of his last 18 or 17 of his last 19. He's also hitting out on the road. There's good balance to his numbers. Michael Toglia, who was so good in the second half last year, was showing signs of coming on. But as we tape this tonight, Big Mike is 6 for 60 on the road. And he'd be the first one to tell you those numbers have to change. I mean, this is a Rockies team that is playing a lot of young players. They're missing some guys that they wish were out there, most notably Ezekiel Tovar. But those young guys, they need to grow up and hopefully quick to find out who's going to be part of the solution. I keep saying that same thing. But, offensively, this is the worst I've seen in watching the Rockies since their inception in 1993. One of the bright spots, though, you're going to hear from here momentarily, and that is Chase Dollander. He has the ability, he has the makeup, and he has the talent to be a lead pony. And after giving up some home runs in his first few starts, his last two, he's not given up a home run. You can see him improving in front of his eyes. He has he has a slow heartbeat. He really does. And he's a terrific young man, as you're going to find out in this chat that we taped yesterday. So without further ado, we'll move from the doldrums of the Avalanche losing, the elation for all those Nugget fans out there. We'll move to my interview this week with Rockies' 23-year-old future ace, potentially, Chase Dollander. Chase, does it seem like a whirlwind, or do you feel like a big leaguer yet?
It's definitely still a bit of a whirlwind, but it's starting to feel more real as time goes by. It's been a learning experience. It's been fun. I'm enjoying it.
Speaking of learning experience, what is the biggest difference that you've noticed through, 5 starts at the big league level versus what you were doing in the minor leagues?
I mean, just how important it is to be in the zone. In the minor leagues, I could get away with stuff that I can't really get away with here. So it's just been a constant, minor adjustments that I've had to make from start to start. And obviously, last start was the best one I've had so far. So I'm excited to kind of, keep working on that and build off of it and keep going.
You said something to us the other night from the dugout. You said one of the things you noticed is, man, that there's a lot of guys that could throw the ball past in Double-A that ain't happening here in the big leagues.
Right. I mean, yeah, exactly. You kind of have in the big leagues, you kind of have to set them up to be able to do that. But even then, the hitters are so good that they can still catch up to it and foul it off rather than swing and miss. So it's just a matter of, mixing effectively.
Who have you leaned on among, especially that group of starters to get some insight and some wisdom?
I would say all of them. All of them have, valuable experience that I can learn from. Feltner is one person that I've really leaned on. Him and I have gotten really close over the past couple of weeks. And then obviously like Gomber, Senza, Markey, and Freeland, like I said, they all have, a good bit of showtime combined. So it's like just kind of picking bits and pieces from each of them and putting it into my own repertoire.
I would think that with Herman and Ryan Feltner, that because they have similar traits, not just that you're right-handed, but, power guys, especially Herman. I mean, Herman, I always say, rolls out of bed and throwing 97, 98 coming off Tommy John. And that's what you have. I mean, that's what you've been blessed with. So do you talk a little bit about that with Herman?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while, like I got to know him when he was rehabbing last year when he came through Spokane when I was there. And so we talked a little bit, but it's more of like, for me, it's sitting back and watching, and just watching how they go about their business, how they go about scouting reports, how they go about, just pitching game to game and just watching and learning and just learning as much as I can with each day that goes by. This game's always, you're never going to be perfect at this game. You're never going to be perfect at anything. So it's, you just have to constantly just keep learning and keep adapting and figuring things out. And that's just kind of what I've taken into each game. When I'm not pitching and when I'm pitching, like when I'm pitching, you never fail. You only fail when you don't learn. I saw Clint Hurdle say something like that. So I kind of took that and ran with it. And, that's been huge for me, like I like nobody likes really going through failure, but you have to fail in order to succeed, in my opinion. So I'm thankful for it. Hopefully we don't have to go through too much of it, but yeah, it's super thankful for it.
How much did Tennessee set you up for the big leagues in that is his big time college baseball with several others, but SEC baseball, Friday night against LSU. I mean, I matched up with Paul Skeens in college. So again, I know it's not 40, 50,000 people and it's not the show, but pretty special stuff. How much did that set you up to handle this?
Yeah, I think it set me up pretty well, honestly. Like you said, like I'm facing guys that I face in college. Like, every time you go out there, you're facing some big leaguers, in the SEC. So, it prepares you a lot, not only physically, but mentally as well. Just knowing that you have to be on your A game every single time you go out there. And obviously there's going to be days where you don't have everything. So you kind of just figure out how to put together, somebody told me that there's going to be 5 starts in the big leagues where you have everything. There's going to be 5 starts where you don't have a single thing. You have to figure it out. And there's going to be about 25 starts where, you're going to feel, okay. And you're going to have to go out and figure it out and grind through it. So just kind of taking that, I feel like my experience in college prepared me for just that, just being able to handle adversity, whenever you're not feeling the greatest and stuff like that. So just going out there and just competing is you always want to face the best competition, and I feel like the SEC is just that.
Yeah. Do you have any specific memories of when you matched up with Skeens and Dylan Cruz is on the other side, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure the attendance record got broken that night. So it was a packed house. My family was there. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun up until I gave up a 2-run homer. But no, I definitely, you always, like I said, you always learn from experiences, and that was one that I'll probably never forget. Skeens he's one of the best pitchers on planet Earth right now. So it was fun to face off against him.
Do you guys have a relationship? I mean, have you gotten together? We met him last year a little bit. Great. He's like you, man. He's a great dude, really, honestly. I don't know how. Do you know him a little bit?
I haven't personally talked to him, but hopefully whenever we play the Pirates, I'll be able to kind of get together with them and just kind of talk through some things. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I want to take you back. So coming out of high school, I mean, you had a terrific high school career. How'd you end up at Georgia Southern? Was the SEC not necessarily interested, or take us through that?
Yeah, so my senior year of high school obviously was COVID year. I didn't have all I had were two offers coming out of college, and one was Georgia Southern, and the other one was College of Charleston. And Georgia Southern being in-state, I got in-state tuition, and I had the Zell Miller scholarship in Georgia, which is, they pay for all of your tuition. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to Georgia Southern. I'm not gonna have to put my family through loans or anything. So I'm gonna do that. And we faced Tennessee, my first collegiate game, faced off against Tennessee, and I think I punched out 8 in 5 2/3, and I just kind of kept that going. And I hit the transfer portal after that, and once Tennessee called kind of later in the day, it was pretty cool. Coach Vitello and Coach Anderson both came to the house and sat down with my parents and I and just kind of talked about everything, which I thought was insane. I've never seen that before in baseball, so I thought it was really cool. Obviously, I think now it's more common, but it was really cool.
Vitello's an interesting guy. I obviously I don't know him, but from afar, he's somebody I'd say, man, I'd like to play for that guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where you hate to play against him, but you love to play for him. He'll do anything for his guys. He has our backs no matter what. And even now, when we're in the big leagues, when we're in the minor leagues grinding, he still has our backs, and he'll carry that for the rest of his life. And I love that about him.
So I read where you were an academic All-American. Congratulations on that. What did you study at UT?
I studied something called therapeutic recreation. It's basically a pathway into PT, and you can go recreational therapy. You can do a whole bunch of different things through it. Took a lot of kinesiology classes in college. I loved it. I had a really good time. I got to work with a bunch of different kind of special needs people and stuff like that, and got to volunteer with some things. So it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Good deal. Is the academic piece always been important to you?
Yeah, I would say so. It's always been an emphasis for my parents. They're always like, school first, and I'm like, baseball's doing pretty good right now. But no, I do. I think, yeah, exactly. I think that I think there will be a point in time where I go back and finish my degree, just to show my kids, hey, your dad finished. Even when he's playing professional baseball. So I want you guys to do it, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Jeff Houston, one of my partners, Ryan Spielborg's another one of my partners, they all, after went back and made sure they finished after or during their big league careers. So good for you for doing that. Hey, your brother Hunter pitched some pro ball too, didn't he?
Yeah, he got up to Double-A with the White Sox.
Okay. Do you guys, after each start, is he breaking stuff down for you? I know, Ryan Feltner's brother, who pitched for a while at Kent State, is kind of his go-to guy. Do you guys have that relationship?
I wouldn't say we have that relationship. He's wedding planning right now, so he's a little busy, and he just went back to school to finish his degree, to be I think a clinical nurse leader, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that, but he's busy. I'm busy. It's hard. To me, I look at Feltner as him as my older brother. So Feltner and I will talk all the time about outings and stuff like that.
Are you a big analytics guy? I mean, hey, you know what? My release point was off 2 centimeters in a particular start. I released my slider here, 2 weeks ago. Now do you get that in depth?
I wouldn't say I get that in depth. I do look at it. I think it's important to look at it because you can kind of see why things are changing, or if things are changing. If you're struggling, you can kind of go back, look at the numbers, see if that's one of the reasons why you're struggling. For me, I rarely look at it. I just go out there and I make sure my vertical break and horizontal break are where they need to be, and if they're not, I figure out why. But other than that, I don't really pay too much attention to it.
How much did you work on? One of the pitches really impressive to me is your curveball, and you came out of Tennessee, especially your sophomore year. We heard, obviously a lead arm, and we heard slider, and now I see cutter, slider. I see a hard power curveball that's been a plus pitch.
Yeah.
Talk us through the evolution of that.
Yeah. Like you said, my sophomore year of college, I was fastball slider primarily. And then my junior year came around and I kind of lost it for whatever reason. I honestly couldn't tell you why. I think I was trying to do too much with my fastball, and that caused me to kind of get pulley and get around it rather than kind of stay on top of it. So when I got into the minor leagues, it was that first off season. I got into the minor leagues. I was like, hey, like my curveball, it's pretty good. And they were like, yeah, let's use it. And I was like, all right. So I just started using it, kind of kept throwing it more and more, and kind of evolved the shape to where, sometimes it gets a little like sweepy. That's not really what I'm looking for. The one I had in my Brave start is the one I'm looking for, the kind of more downward action, more 12-6, if you will. It plays really well off my fastball, protects the fastball. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to continue to use that, and also developing the slider and getting it to the shape that I want it to be. Right now it's a little cuttery. I still want it to be hard, but I want it to be a little bit more depth than it has currently.
Hey, I haven't asked you this before. With the whole Coors Field thing, the whole altitude thing, what are your thoughts now, early in your career, and you've made some starts on the road, sea level, now you've made some starts and good ones at home?
Yeah, I definitely think it's obviously a real thing. My fastball is affected, I would say, most than any other pitch. But because of my low arm slot and because of my extension, I can still spin it at the top of the zone and get pop-ups and stuff like that. But obviously you kind of have to be more fine in Denver. If you miss middle, especially, like I kind of learned pretty quick, bad things will happen. So it's a matter of, I would say, mixing more. And I feel like my curveball honestly hasn't been affected too much. To me, in my eyes, it's stuff that backspins that are affected. If it's like top spinning, like a curveball, or a gyro, like a slider, it doesn't really mess with it too much. Obviously you're going to have a little bit of a change, but it's not a crazy amount. Like my fastball at sea level is probably 16, 17 vert. At home, it can get all the way down to 9. So it's a pretty significant change, but like I said, you just kind of be more fine with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think people would assume it's the breaking pitches that flatten out a little bit or back up in case of a slider.
Yeah. If you back a pitch up, it's not, at sea level, it could come back. At Denver, it's just going to go. It could either two seam sometimes. Like I threw a backup slider to Goody in warmups one time, and it just kind of two seamed away, and I was like, oh, my bad.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, people probably wonder at home and go, all right, guys made his way through the minor leagues, and you've done it pretty rapidly, and now you're in the big leagues. From a day-to-day standpoint, from a travel standpoint, from a clubhouse standpoint, what has been the most impressive thing? What's the coolest thing about being in the show versus, obviously on a bus in the Eastern League? But
yeah,
take us through what's been most impressive for you.
I would say the food, honestly. You get fed way differently here than you do in the minor leagues.
Not eating Domino's?
I heard a story one time. It's like one guy got so sick of steak because he had it so much, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever get like sick of steak. Like, keep feeding me steak, I'll eat it every single day. But no, I would say that, and the travel. The travel is obviously different. You're on an airplane, 24/7 basically. So it's just kind of trying to figure out, what works for you routine wise, and trying to recover every day is definitely, one of the challenges that we all face.
Yeah. I asked you this on television the other night, but has there been like the holy shit moment where you're looking in the box and there is, it'll happen, Shohei, or, you're facing Chris Sale or a guy that you may have had their baseball cards, that sort of thing?
Honestly, no. When I'm pitching, I'm pretty locked in. So it's, I don't really look at the hitter. I don't really care who's in the box. I have my plan for each one of them, and I'm going to execute my plan. But yeah, I mean, I had, those moments probably come more when I'm not pitching, honestly. So like, when I'm doing my throwing program before the game starts, I'm just kind of looking around. I'm like, dang, like, I'm here. Like, this is crazy. This is my life for hopefully the next 15, 20 years. I'm excited. I'm really excited.
Good deal. Last one, because you got to go get on a bus. Speaking of transportation, et cetera, big
Yeah.
transportation. To me, sometimes the way you described it growing up, it's like, I don't want to call you the accidental great baseball player, but you weren't necessarily a Braves fan. You just, you played some ball and
Mhm.
here you are. I mean, am I exaggerating that?
No, I wouldn't say you're exaggerating that. I didn't really do any of the showcase stuff. My family, we didn't have the money to do all that, honestly. I got to play for free for a travel ball team back home, complete game. They were very, very generous and let me play for free. We did a couple like perfect game things, but I never really did the huge like perfect game tournaments or where I could really get my name out there. So I just kind of had to rely on being good at high school. And my thing is like you don't have to go to those showcases. Like as a kid, have fun, just play baseball, man. Just go have fun, and the rest will kind of take care of itself. If you're good enough, they'll find you. I promise. So that's just kind of the mindset that I had with it. I'm just going to give everything I got, and whatever happens, happens. And I blinked 3 times, and I'm here. So
Yeah. You know what? That's well said. I've said it many times. It's great advice to young people and young families. Chase, continued success, man. Good luck going forward, and go get on that bus, and good luck tonight.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Chase. I think to be a top of the rotation pitcher, you have to have the stuff. You have to have the makeup. And when you discuss makeup, one of the ingredients for me is a great competitiveness and a desire to want the baseball in critical situations. And everything that we've seen from Chase Dollander, and I've learned in visiting with him, he has that makeup. He has that desire. And whether it was Friday night for Tennessee or now, potentially down the road, not too far down the road, being near the top of that rotation for the Rockies and helping to turn things around overall as an organization. I think he's somebody that will embrace that. He's somebody that wants that. He's somebody that will handle that. And that's good news for all Rockies fans out there. That'll do it for this edition of the Drew Goodman Podcast. Big thanks to Alex. Big thanks to Marky. And we'll do it again in 7 days. Av fans, hang in there. Nugget fans, go get after the Oklahoma City Thunder. Take care, everyone. Stay well.